All right, IBAISL2. Today we're going to talk sampling techniques. This section is really not that bad. It's basically just taking a big group of data and taking certain parts of it and finding the mean and stuff like that. But there's a ton of new vocab that they use. The first one, population. This is your total data. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's the whole group that you collect data from. So if you were going to study, say, caffeine consumption of teenagers in Beaverton, then it would be literally every single teenager that lives in Beaverton. A sample is a smaller group chosen from that population. So if you took, 200 Sunset kids from that group, that's called a subset or a sample. If you were still looking at caffeine consumption in teenagers in Beaverton. Random sampling, we'll just continue with my example of, if you're trying to look at caffeine consumption of teenagers in Beaverton, random sampling would be you just figure out a way to generate random numbers that randomly select truly random people from anywhere in Beaverton. Systematic sampling would be a little more systematic, for lack of a better word. The book's example is taking every fifth entry. I feel like this is sort of still random, but if all your data was arranged from least to greatest, every fifth would be kind of a systematic way to sample. Convenience sampling is easy to reach people, like friends at school. So if you were studying caffeine consumption of teenagers, you could just talk to your friends, and that's a convenience sampling. It might not be the best sample, though. Biased samples, that was convenience, is, people at your school. Biased is some sort of sampling where you might not get the best representation of the population as a whole. So it's not random, it's a specific group. One example is if you were going to, look at people's spending habits on automobiles or something, and then you only talk to people at a Mercedes dealership or some expensive car place, your data is going to be very biased because, the people that shop there have a lot of money to be able to spend on cars, as opposed to, talking to everyone in your community or a random sample in the community about what cars they're buying and how much money they're putting into it and stuff like that. Quota sampling is setting quotas, at least 50 boys and 50 girls. That's going to come into if you're choosing to do the IA in this class. People always ask, how many data points should they have for the IA? The rule of thumb is 50. We're going to say 50 data points for IA. The last one is stratified sampling. So we're actually going to do an example of this. Stratified sampling, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of there's stratified soil, or, we have a stratus in our atmosphere, but it basically means that there's these layers. Selecting at random where numbers in each category are proportional to their numbers in the population. What that means is taking a certain ratio or percentage from each kind of group you're looking at. For this example, Mandy asks all students in her school to take a memory test. The students have to remember as many objects as they can from the 20 that Mandy shows them. So Mandy shows them all these pictures of random objects, like a bike, a chair, a car, a bee, a mountain, stuff like that. And then after she's done, they have to remember as many of them as they can. In certain classes, like class 7, there was 20 students, and then in class 8, there was 27 students. And then each of these numbers are how many that particular student could remember. So that first student in class 7 remembered 16 objects. I apologize that this got a little cut off down here, but it says, in order to take a stratified sample of 40 students from the 150 in total. So there's a total of 150. There's 150 students that she talked to out of all the classes. So this total equals 150 kids. She wants a stratified sample of 40. Now, to make it stratified, it has to be even across the board, and you couldn't just take, non-stratified would be like if you took all these, and you're like, hey, that's 40 right there, but you didn't, you missed a bunch in the population. So, she can't just take, how many classes are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. She can't just take, an even number from each of them, because all of those classes have different numbers of students in them. So, for class 7, we're going to, I think it said down here to show that it's about 5 students she should be taking from that class. Remember that class 7 here is 20 students out of the total of 150. So 20 out of 150, you can think of like a percentage. This is about 13.33%. So we need to figure out what 13.33% of 40 students is, because class 7 here is 13% of the total population. So for class 7, I think the way that we're going to do it, instead of just using the percentage, we'll go 20 out of 150, which is the percentage as a decimal, and we'll multiply that by the 40. So this is 5.33, so we'll round that down to 5 students. So that's 5 students for class 7. Now we're going to do that same process for all of the classes. So for class 8, we'll do 27 out of the 150, 27 out of the 150, and then multiply it by 40. Or not 140, 40. So 27 out of 150 was 18%, and you multiply it at 7.2. So we're going to round that down to 7 students. So let's see, this was class 7, this was class 8. Class 9 is 23 out of the 150. And multiply that by 40. It's 6 and some change, so we'll say, it's like 6.13, so we'll say this is, well, get out of here, buddy. 6 students. And then class 10 is 26 out of 150 times 40. So, oops. Sorry, I keep screwing up. 26 divided by 150 times 40. There it is. It's like 6.93. So this one, because it's closer to 7, we're actually going to round up to 7 students. And then class 11 is 30 divided by, I'm just going to do it on my calculator, times 40. It was 0.2, so 0.2 times the 40 is 8. There should be 8 kids from that. So each time you're just taking the number of students, dividing it by the total number of students, and multiplying by your desired population, or your desired sample, which is 40. Last one, 24 divided by 150 times 40. It was 16%, so that's 6.4. I guess we'll round that down to 6 students. Not 10, 12. Now, if you take these numbers here, 5 students, 7 students, 5 plus 7 is 12, plus 6 is 18, plus 7 is 25, plus 8 is 33, plus 6 is 39. So total is 39 students, but this was due to rounding. So that's fine. You could just if you were actually doing this, you could round one of them up. Like I think one of them was like the last one was 6.4, which is getting closer to 7. I realized with true rounding, you round it down to 6, but you could round this one up to 7 if you were like, no, I have to have 40. So you could round that up to 7. But now all these chunks of students are the same percentage of students that they were up in here. So you're keeping it proportional, and therefore it is stratified. Last thing I'm going to show you guys, some of your homework, they ask you to sample randomly. Random is not just you closing your eyes and picking, like pointing at certain numbers. That's not truly random. So I'm going to teach you a way to find random numbers on your calculator. First thing you're going to find is the math button. Press that math button. You'll see 4 menus up at the top. Arrow over to the right until you get to PRB. This stands for probability. Then number 5 is the rand int. It looks like this, rand int, and then an open parentheses. If you hit enter on that, it's going to pop it onto your home screen. Now here's how rand int works. Sometimes I use this for seating charts. On my screen, I'll put rand int, and then, oh wait, sorry, math, probability, rand int. Then you have to put 2 numbers. The numbers are the, sort of stop and start points of where you want it to pull integers from. So like if you had numbers from 1 to 50 or something like that, like let's say I had 50 kids in a class, not unusual for this year, put 1 comma 50 and then hit enter, like it gave me a 19. So it literally just pulled a random number between 1 and 50 and said, hey, it's 19. If you hit enter again, it's going to do the same thing. Like I just ran the same program again, 1 through 50, and it gave me a 1. Well, that's random. It's the first one. Hit enter again, it gives me a 47. And then boom, these are all random integers here. Random integers between 1 and 50. All right, you guys, happy studying.